Boom, we are live and almost on time. We're doing pretty well tonight. Hope you're all well. I'm Hikosaemon. This is Tokyo Tonight 2. And welcome. I see some of you there in the comments. You're already talking about watching the excellent 2.5 Oyajis show that we did last night with Scott Ackerman, the artist formerly known as Unrested. He's gone back to his real name. And yeah, he kind of made a decision that he was not going to do J-vlogging anymore. He's going to go and pursue his more artistic and creative pursuits on his channel, and I think power to him on that. As a result, however, as some of you are aware, he privated all of his videos at once on his channel, which are like apparently 800 videos. So yes, that upset some people who still like to reference his J-Fact videos, and some people were still in the middle of watching some series and stuff like that. So I understand that was a bit tough or a bit dramatic, but power to the guy. You know, he wants to. We were actually, Victor, Scott and I did have a chat after we finished the show, and we were talking a little bit about the difference between maybe the three of us and some of the other people who especially get a little bit too wrapped up in YouTube life and you know, offline as well. And yeah, we all sort of realized that we have in common that we kind of have, you know, families and maybe more settled lives outside of YouTube, and that maybe gives us all the confidence to do what we want to do, which is, you know, not make stuff that we know would work, but, you know, we know would be popular, but not make it because, you know, we want to make because we want to be popular for the audiences. It's a matter of having audiences that, you know, discover us and are comfortable with letting us talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, which, you know, for me includes Japan. I'm actually interested to talk about Japan. I've been here 20 years. I still like to talk about it, so that's cool. But I can talk about my other crazy stuff, and that's why I enjoy having you guys here and doing the show. So I'm kind of already doing in a less dramatic way what Scott is doing, and I do very much appreciate that you all let me do that, and that you enjoy spending, well, I enjoy spending this time with you, and I enjoy that you tolerate me for an hour every week. I've changed the thumbnail. I quite like. I just, you know, again, I'm trying to make everything easier. There's a thumbnail that I could use every week, and it's just the same information: drums in, when to be here. So yeah, let's see who's in, and various people asking for different topics and so on this week, and some things to talk about. But you know, want to keep it sort of fresh and interesting. So what do we got here? We've got Justin Connolly. He was in about 15 minutes early. I saw that. Pre-show hype. It was pretty hyped. Justin was the only person there, but you know, that was actually the most hype that the pre-show has had for a long time. So I do appreciate you bringing the hype, Justin, and thank you. I hope you're enjoying watching the show. We've got Mr. Cordy Chip. Good to see you. Indeed, I changed the thumbnail about an hour ago for the last 2.5 Oyajis show. I found, and by the way, the artist, the Enderling. I tried to reach out to get permission to use that, but I didn't get a response on it. So if you want me to take it down, I will take it down. But I think it's an excellent portrait of Scott, and I think it is a pretty cool, it's consistent with the theme of where he wants to go with his channel. And I thought it was pretty cool, so I changed the thumbnail to that, with a very large credit to the artist who did it, and did an excellent job. So yay, the Underling. Check it out on Deviant Art. Jeff, good morning to you. It's nighttime here, so I'm guessing you are in Europe somewhere, maybe in America, very early over there. We got Bradley Ford. Good evening, the Sergeant Bilko. Hello in Sweden. Good to see you. Who else we got here? We got Nicholas Filter. Good to have you along. Ing San. Ing San isn't a name that rings a bell for me, so welcome. Hi from Denmark. Nice to have the Denmark people. Big in Scandinavia. We have a Swedish person and a Danish person, so I guess that means that we are rocking the Scandinavians right now. This is good. I feel like I need to put on some aqua or something, some barbecue, to try to keep up. Okay, very good to have you along. Ayleswitch, good to have you along. Hello from the UK indeed, and welcome the UK. Good to have you along. We've got Giancarlo Sands. Nice to have another regular back. Very good. 2 minutes later, pro rata refund. You will be getting a full refund, I promise. Mr. Cordy Chap, everything that you paid will be refunded in full. In fact, it already has been. So enjoy that. Davo Hunter, good to have you along, Davo. World Traveler. And that is a kanji, that's a Chinese, standardized Chinese. That's not a Japanese used kanji, so I can't read the second part. It's like something north. But good to have you along. What is that? I don't know what that is. Odie Jr., hello from Missouri. Welcome, Missouri. Good to have you. And is that a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel that I see in your thumbnail? I used to have one of those. They are lovely dogs. So, yes, big fan of that thumbnail, Odie Jr. Jeff, do I think there's going to be another wave of J-vloggers? Yes, there are always new waves of J-vloggers. We did talk last night a little bit about the fact that new vloggers lately are a lot more sophisticated, and they're much more self-reliant. They can pretty much get going and launch themselves. Part of the reason we used to have J-vloggers was people just wanting to get their start in vlogging, and connecting with the community was the best way to do it. Nowadays, I don't know, people feel like they don't really need the community. People seem to be a lot more confident getting off, kicking off their channels on their own. That's good for them. It doesn't mean I don't think that the mixes and the community events won't continue, and that we won't continue, as we see just with English teaching, with professions, and with J-vlogging, that there will always be new people coming to Japan and doing new cool things. And there will always be cool standout people, but I think it's going to be a different vibe. I mean, it's already a different vibe to what it's been, but that's just natural. So, yeah, there's always going to be new waves and waves of J-vloggers, and you just got to try to keep up, which is tough because there are so many people. As Mr. Cordychep himself there is saying, you don't even know many of the new ones, and yeah, for me it's hard to keep up as well. But it's worth keeping an eye out because there are some really, really cool ones. I mean, if I hadn't been keeping an eye out, I would have missed Betamax DC. I would have missed Stew in Japan. I would have missed a bunch of really, really excellent channels. Kanai even Japan, or Kenji Kanai. He's got an awesome channel. Just people just do awesome stuff. So keep an eye out. But yes, it is kind of different now. Lysander 45, good to have you along. James O'Hara, Avro mate, indeed, Avro. Is it Avo or Avro? I don't know what Avro means, but I'm sure it's nice. And it's good to have you along. Avro, back at you. Yes, we got Hinuk Weber from Germany, if I recall correctly, right? Anyway, it's good to have you along, sir. And the Japan dude, ring-a-ding-ding indeed. Caroline van Oostendenborg, we've got the Dutch representation here, the Dutch-Indonesian representation. Good to have you along. Who else we got here? The Japan dude is on a slow boat back to Japan from Busan. I didn't know they had slow boats from Busan to Japan. They have fast boats. They have the Beetle, which is like one of those crazy hydrofoils. You can actually get on a ferry between Korea and Japan. It only takes like, 3 hours? Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's 6 hours or something. But it takes 1 hour by airplane. The boats are crazy fast. If you're on a slow boat, well, enjoy the slow boat. In fact, I'm surprised you're connected to watch this, but I'm very glad that you're here. My name, say my name, indeed I will say my name is watching from Kyushu. Where in Kyushu you're watching from? Kyushu's a big place. I'm a fan of Kyushu. I consider Kyushu to be my Japanese hometown, being from Fukuoka myself. So very glad to see the Kyushu people are watching. It's cocktail time. The bar is full of ladies of K-Lang. Ding-a-ding-ding. Ring-a-ding-ding, indeed. Yeah, Jeff, I miss seeing vloggers supporting each other as well. But what can you do? Kiwi for afternoon. Avro? I don't remember Avro being... Well, maybe it's changed. I've been away from 20 years. Yes, and a pair of Odie Jr. complimenting the dog, that's right. A mini Australian Shepherd mixed with Papillon. Lovable mutt works. Papillon, okay. Well, it's very, very cool. Looks a very cute dog there. And Jex Ashbolt, welcome. You made it just in time to be the last name read out in the original shout-out. So good to have you along, everybody. And Hinnerk Weber, good to have you from Germany. Guten Tag, but I guess it's in the morning. Guten Morgen? I don't know. There it is with my no longer New Zealand accent, but no longer any other accent, but it certainly isn't German. But anyway, good to have you along. And so let's get into the tweets this week. And as always, I used to curate this, but I just don't have yesterday was Undokai, my son's sports day. Things like this, it's really hard. It used to take 2 or 3 hours to curate the content for the magazine, so it just means that I will be skipping through a lot of content, but I will be going through my Twitter feed. You should follow me on Twitter, and I love it when people interact and comment and ask questions and so on. You can also do it on Facebook, where you can have much better conversations, and I tend to have actually pretty good conversations on Facebook, but a lot of fun comments and sort of brief backs and forths on Twitter as well. And you should follow me there because that's where I keep everything posted. But here is the Cliff's Notes of my week. My links from Twitter. And John Anderson, hello from London. Hello there in London. Good to have you along. Nicholas Filter, okay, it's good afternoon. Guten Tag, I think that's good afternoon. I didn't realize that. I thought it was actually earlier in the day, so there we go. John Anderson, I'm very glad that you appreciated the show with Scott. I thought it was a good show, actually, and Scott's a guy I respect a lot. It's always great to get a guest on like that. And as I mentioned as well, 2.5 Oyajis, they'll be kind of like specials from now on, rather than regulars, although we would like to do, ideally, like twice a month. But we want to do it with a proper guest, make a big deal of it when we do it. So, yeah. Jax Ashbolt, you've got a stronger Kiwi accent than most. I never really had a Kiwi accent. That's part of my problem. My father's family were from the far south, and my dad gets asked if he's South African as well. So it's probably his influence as well. But also being away from it, if you really talk like a Kiwi, people don't really understand you in Japan. So fast boat is white man voodoo. Well, that's a fact. You heard it right there from the Japan dude. Let's get into the stories this week. So there is this video that you're watching now. You already know about this because you are watching, or maybe you're watching this recorded, in which case maybe you didn't know about it, and you should have known about it, and you would know about it if you followed my Facebook or my Twitter. So follow those good things. What have we got here? This is from Dave Hunter. Now, I don't actually. Maybe you've noticed, I don't like to cover crime news. Victor does. I generally sort of avoid it. So this is a specific request by Dave Hunter. This is a person that he knows. She's a Pakistani national, but an American, so probably a Pakistani-American exchange student in Perth. Was victim of an attack this week. It sounds like they got the guy. Hopefully they got the correct person, and hopefully she will recover soon. She's good friends with one of the people watching the show. So man, that really, really sucks. I hope again, everyone is better, and I hope they get the guy, obviously. And in fact, I was gonna. Her name is Mildred. You know what? I was gonna Marine Ahmed. Marine Ahmed. 31-year-old exchange student. Well, anyway, terrible thing. And I'm very sorry to hear that this happened, but there again, stay strong, Davo, and it was a request that I mention this, and I certainly, be strong to the family and the friends and everyone, give her some love, and I hope everything gets better soon. This is an interesting one. Everyone's watching the news today. This is a little bit close to my current real life, in a sense. This isn't my fault. I've got nothing to do with this, at least that I'm aware of. The British Airways. So now they're going to their second day. Apparently there was a power outage somewhere, and that caused British Airways global internal IT networks to go down for 2 days, and it's been causing chaos and mayhem. And you have to wonder if there was a power failure. That implies a power failure in one place, which implies that either they have a single mainframe, or a single massive on-premises data center that they own themselves, or they use cloud but they rely on one region somewhere they didn't architect properly. But if that were the case, we'd be hearing about this from multiple companies. So all I can think is that you've got this major company that's got all of its IT risk and costs all focused on one place that they own. I mean, British Airways decided that they wanted to be an IT infrastructure company, and they didn't even do that right. They didn't have backup. So I don't know. I'm very curious, just as someone who's worked in IT for a long time, to actually hear the story about. Oh, okay. So, Dave, I've just seen your comment. I will come back to your story, but just briefly on this, I'm curious to find out what the story is with the system and how this happened. I mean, was it a hacking? I wondered if it was one of the sort of WannaCry drama, or if it was a hacking case. There's been lots of that going on. It sounds like it was more simple than that, but if that's the case, that's kind of even less forgivable. That's a kind of a governance issue. And then you have to ask, when you can actually cheaper move your systems into the cloud and be able to use backups in multiple countries, or be able to use, there's no reason for a company to have a data center in one place that could have a power failure that could cause this much damage to your business. It's not necessary. You can do it cheaper and safer. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, but I'm curious to see what will happen with that. So just coming back, so what Davo wanted me to talk about with this thing he was involved in. Safety for international visitors and countries, namely most of us here. So here in Japan, I think specifically perhaps. For Australia, I can't really talk about Australia. Safety in Japan is pretty good, to tell you the truth. I suppose it is a thing when you are. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, for students, one thing is, I mean, students tend to be inherently sociable. You know, they tend to have lots of sort of home parties and so on, and that's a good thing. And it's kind of a, but there again, I suppose, it is when you're going to a new country, you don't have any sort of support networks and so on. I mean, it's definitely good to, you know, I think it's natural. I think not just being a student per se. I think traveling or backpacking that we tend to. I mean, I went backpacking in Argentina and South America, and in Spain. And yeah, I had problems, but you know, I suppose the thing is that even if it's not more dangerous than your home country, you tend to be more in a mindset when you're on an exchange or traveling that you want to do more adventurous things, and people do silly things like hitchhiking. Like, I mean, in Australia, you still hear all these cases of hitchhikers, you know, having horrible things happen to them, and it's kind of yeah, I kind of get that people want to have a story about, you know, doing something adventurous with an element of risk, but yeah, I suppose, you know, learn about the place. Try to exercise the same degree of common sense you would as if you were at home. You can still have an interesting time without doing, you know, I don't know if that was actually the case here, but there again, you know, yeah, it's the same, I guess, coming to Japan. And truth is, I mean, you know, foreigners, and again, not students, but there were cases of, for example, hostesses. You know, their job is meeting and socializing. It's not actually prostitution. The hostesses literally are paid drinks to keep being company. You know, people like to pay for that as a service, but it is fairly common in those sort of industries that the men will say, hey, do you want to come out to my beach house for the weekend? Or shall I take you for a drive in my Porsche? And, you know, it's sort of, again, you're on an adventure overseas. It's pretty common that women, you know, would say to the old men that they'll do that. And there were a couple of cases a few years ago in Japan where women were, you know, abducted and ended up dead in some cases. So certainly, again, you have to use your common sense meter on the one hand and think this is something I'd do at home. And, you know, you sort of have to, as much as you want to have an adventure, you have to sort of, I guess, regulate that a little bit. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that actually, other than just try not to forget common sense, you know, which isn't that common to begin with. But yes, these things do happen even in Japan. They certainly happen in Australia, and you know, just take good care of yourself, and you know, use the same sort of protections that you'd use, frankly, anywhere else. You know, have friends who know where you are and so on, and just don't do anything silly. So let's come back. So in terms of China feels like it's being unfairly targeted for its, I mean, yeah, China's pretty much successfully figured out a way to invade, you know, territory that it doesn't control without America being able to do anything about it. They demonstrated that in the South China Sea, and that really makes Japan in a risky situation, because Japan occupies, you know, islands that China is adamant that it should control, and it regularly runs these. I mean, China throws a hissy fit when America runs ships through what should be international waters, because the islands that the Chinese are using to claim territory are artificial islands, which don't count for creating territorial seas. If that were the case, you could put artificial islands anywhere in the world and claim territorial seas, so you're not allowed to do that. But you know, they throw a hissy fit at American warships sailing through the South China Sea now. But they regularly send patrol ships to these, you know, to the Senkaku Islands, which have been controlled by Japan since World War II, and without mention or protest until the 1980s. You know, they're doing the same sort of thing, and obviously, if they're not going to get pushed back or challenged, or you know, they're going to keep going more extreme. And yeah, they're strongly dissatisfied. But I'm sorry, you know, rule of international law is something, right? And this is, you know, Russia's done the same thing. It took Ukraine. They've kind of figured out, you know, how to do military invasions without, you know, it being, everyone's like trained for Cold War type invasions, and I guess that's not the world that we have. But it's kind of scary. They've figured out how to game the system. So yes. What else have we got? Richie McCaw, New Zealand legend, captain of the All Blacks. He's in Japan at the moment, giving some seminars and so on, and you know, for collecting for his charity. Man is a legend. In fact, yeah, retired recently, but actually is a helicopter pilot. I think he's like a Rhodes Scholar. He's like, you know, he's smart bloody machine of a rugby player, one of the best, if not the best, rugby player New Zealand's ever produced, actually. So he's a real, very, very well-respected person. So coming to Japan is a big deal for me. He's the guy with the black cap there. This is concerning that a third of America's bee colonies died last year, and that's actually doing better than the year before. I mean, again, silent spring, the idea of all the insects, and then the birds dying, was something which triggered the environmental movement in America. And, those predictions from the 1960s seem to be happening. It's kind of freaky. The world's biggest optical telescope, a mirror with 43 yards, what's that, 40 meters? That's like, crazy. It's not going to be ready till 2024, but they're hoping they'll be able to actually see planets around other stars, which they can't do right now. They can only sort of detect indirectly that they're there. To me, that is awesome. This is kind of an interesting one. In Japan, it's the same issue that you have all over the place. There was this kind of suspicion of male teachers and male daycare workers. People don't want to have men being alone with their sort of kids. And on this, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like it was recently raised by the mayor of Chiba that he wanted to get more men into daycare, saying that they could do the same thing, and there was a flood of outrage on the internet. How can you do that? Most child molesters are men, statistically speaking. So, the parents don't want men to be around their kids. Well, speaking for myself, I've been in, I think I counted 17 schools once. I've had hundreds of teachers. I went to an all-boys high school where all the teachers were men. In my entire life, in spite of having had probably more than 100 teachers, I've only had 2 female teachers, and they were both like when I was in first grade and before that. And I've never had any of these sort of problems, based on, stereotypes. And my own son, I mean, he was in a daycare with multiple men and women caregivers, and they were all awesome, very professional people. So there's the history thing, but it's an interesting problem. In Japan it's the same problem. In Sweden, apparently, same thing in America. People get hysterical, the idea of male daycare givers, but same sensitivity in Japan, but it is maybe unfair. I mean, whether you call it reverse sexism or whatever. I mean, someone says if it's based on data, but then even if it's based on data, it's like saying most foreigners have short-term leases, so can you ban all foreigners from renting apartments? It's not really fair to not look at the individuals, right? So yeah, Hikosaemon made it. In fact, I am afraid to ask. Steve from Berkeley, good to have you along here. Neville Chamberlain, foreign policy. You are talking, the China thing, right? So yes. Well, it's kind of different to that. Well, it's not entirely dissimilar now that you mention it. In fact, I think that's an insightful comment now that you say it. Like us, sir, good to have you along. And in terms of students needing to take care of themselves, indeed, female students, I guess you do have to, it's horrible to have to say, but yes, they do have to take more care. Hikostream, got to be on Watch This Shizzle. Indeed, good to have you along. Did you watch the thing with Scott last night? That was pretty, it was a good video. I really enjoyed it. He's, a good guy. What else we got here? So Google Home tweeted back at me because I was saying I want to get a Google Home when I'm in America. I asked when are they going to be in Japan, and they said soon. They're coming to Japan, so that's pretty good. TSA, good news if you're going to America. I'm going to America in September. If you are in Seattle, or you can get to Seattle from where you are, I will be in Seattle on the week of the 4th to the 9th, 4th to the 8th. I'll be there working, but I think there's a public holiday on the 4th, Labor Day or something like that. So, I don't know, I will be doing work stuff, but I would like to try to do one meetup of some sort, if I could do again. It was fun doing one last time when I was in Seattle. So, hit me up if you are a Seattle person. If you're in the comments, drop me a message on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll put more information about that when it gets closer. But one thing I do have to look forward to about going to America was, I was kind of actually shocked. They do actually make you take off your shoes and everything when you go through the customs there. I mean, since everyone was doing it, I didn't really care about it. But, I mean, and it's partly because of the hassle of, collecting bags and the loss of time. And they lost my suitcase last time. So I want to carry as much on carry-on as possible if I can. And so I'm not really, the idea that, at least it won't be until after summer, but the idea that US customs is going to be like thoroughly searching everyone's carry-on is kind of, kind of a pain in the ass, frankly. But yeah. TK Sam, I had to partake in a debate about if North Korea is ever going to nuke Japan or not. You always said, well, we could intercept them if they ever came here, but now they have fast missiles. Well, they do, and America is now testing ICBM intercepting missiles, which is really going to piss off China and Russia, because if those things work, it means that their missile deterrence won't work. And again, this has all been forced by North Korea, so that is a really, and that's also a very good point, that they do have the missiles that are too fast to intercept. Although that said, they do have the THAAD array in South Korea, and the Patriot systems and the Aegis systems that Japan has. But yeah, there's a real question whether they could actually deal to the missiles that North Korea is using. That's actually a very intelligent and lucid comment that you're making there, Sam. That's impressive. Hola, amigo, indeed, Travis Moore. Did I get my suitcase back? I did. In fact, they were very casual about it. Apparently, it was just not on the plane that I flew on, and it came 5 hours later. So I had to stay at the airport in Seattle for 5 hours, which the Seattle airport I discovered isn't really fun for more than about 7.5 minutes. I had to sit there for 5 hours. I got my suitcase in the end. That was okay, but it really did feel like I was entering a third world country. I'm sorry. So yes, and it's going to get worse. So what else have we got here? There's an asteroid made out of pure platinum, which will be brought into, which I guess if you are investing in platinum, sell now, because NASA's going to be bringing an asteroid made out of it into Earth's orbit for ironing it, and that'll be a shame. Taiwan, huge shout out to Taiwan. Taiwan, first Asian country to legalize marriage. And I know that, technically speaking, you're not supposed to recognize Taiwan as a country because it upsets China. That just makes me want to recognize Taiwan more, especially when they're doing really, really cool shit, like not recognizing, like recognizing gay marriage, which they should totally, everyone should be doing, and making adorable mascots, which apparently Taiwan has, and there they are. Taiwan is an awesome country, and hell, it is a country. They've got defined territory, different currency, different government. They're totally democratic. They have an elected president. They've got their own military, with really cool, like Israel type military with conscription. I mean, and they haven't been part of China apart from like for 5 or 6 years after World War II. They haven't been part of a unified China like since the mid 19th century. They've been with Japan longer than they've been, much longer than they were ever part of China in that period. So yeah, it's indeed the Republic of China, but good on Taiwan indeed. And it's kind of, China bullied them out of the World Health Organization recently. It's just, it kind of sucks. They're a country of 20-30 million people, and they're not allowed to, we all have to, it's like the emperor's clothes, we have to pretend that they don't exist. They're a freaking big country, right? I mean, so, and again, this is basically China forcing everyone to kowtow to them, but there we go. The subconscious doesn't make mistakes, I'm told. I'm not sure what I just gave away, but I'm pretty sure, yes. Chris Crook, welcome Chris Crook. You always ask your Chinese students that if Taiwan is a province of China, why do I need to get my passport stamped when I visit? Yeah. Although there again, if you're in mainland China, you don't want to antagonize them over that stuff because they've all been educated a certain way. But yes, I mean, it's crazy. No airport worse than Honolulu, says Jeff. I've been through Honolulu briefly, and on the way to the Big Island, and I don't know that I want to spend 5 hours there. But seriously, Seattle was kind of shitty. I was very disappointed. So, Tokyo has a new logo mark. Are you ready for this? The finest design minds in Japan came together to make the new logo for Tokyo. Maybe I should put this on my show. Maybe I should ask if I'm allowed to use this, because here it is, the Tokyo government invested logo for Tokyo. Wait a minute. There it is. Boom. Tokyo. Mind-blowing. It's a little bit disappointing, to tell you the truth, to most people. I mean, they sort of got a brush. Yeah, well, trademark that stuff. People are going to be going crazy with it, but yeah. So there we are. I hope you recovered from the shock. That is the new Tokyo logo. Some people have commented they wish they could have tried a little bit harder. But that's it. So Tokyo tonight, maybe that's what I should use. Or maybe not. I think I like my fonts better. So there we go. Oh yeah, another US city. Apparently somewhere in Florida they're going to have another conflict woman statue, just because they discovered, the civic groups that put these up discovered that they really annoy the Japanese government. So they're having fun. That's basically trolling the Japanese government with these. Terrible thing, nothing wrong with marking it historically, but they're making a big deal of trying to get it onto public land and basically trying to incorporate it into the American education system. Which they're welcome to do, but yes, the Japanese government kind of encourages them. It's kind of the Streisand effect, Japan reacting so strongly partly encourages it, and then they do it some more. So yes, that's some news. That's the Unrested show last night. You can check it out here on this YouTube channel. It was a good show. It's worth watching. So make sure if you can catch that up if you can. I think it went pretty well. Photo book printing. I want to print photo books, and it's really annoying that in America, if you have like Facebook, it's got built-in photo book printing. Amazon has built-in photo book printing. Google has built-in photo book printing. Apple, I don't know what the deal is with Apple. If you have a Mac, it's got photo book printing, but I've just got like iOS. But I've got all my photos. I take them with my iPhone. But they don't have this in Japan. There are lots of printing services, but none of them are connected with the big social media companies, and I kind of whinged a little bit about that. We'll see how that goes. This is very cool. This is just Nike's just set up a track in the Philippines where it tracks you running around the track, and it creates like a digital proxy of yourself that you can race against or pace against or whatever. I watched this. I thought this is really cool, and I want to try that, and I want them to set this up. And apparently Nike is planning to set these things up in lots of countries. But the other thing that I thought was, wouldn't it be really cool to get some AR glasses like these, and use GPS or whatever, so that it could actually detect you running a certain course, like a marathon course or a cycling course, and creating like an avatar, a digital avatar that you can see overlapped with your real world, so you can race yourself, or even not even yourself, and you could record yourself and race yourself, so you can try to beat your best time. Or you could actually create a virtual person to pace you as you go through. Something like that. That would be. I love that. I mean, and this is where I think things are going. But credit to Nike. I think that's an excellent idea. By the way, I'm sorry I'm not looking at the comments all the time, but repeat comments if I've missed them. I'm looking at them right now. The Comic Sans. That's right. Indeed, that's like Gran Turismo's future. Well, that's exactly it. In fact, I didn't make that connection, but that's right. It's the race yourself feature on Gran Turismo. Just do it in AR. I think that would be really awesome for running. Hell, even for driving. Now that you mention it, we should get a patent on that right now. We need a developer that can actually really well. A developer and talent are two things. Maybe we can do it here. Maybe we can. I don't know. Is there anyone here who could do that? But I think they should be doing it anyway. The big companies. That's for me. It's more important that they just that they get it, even if it's not me. A bit of talk about Putin and how he's even got like a perfect number to it. Putin's a bit like Dr. Evil, only with competent help, and he doesn't give away his plans. Apart from that, he's exactly like Dr. Evil. He's like a Bond villain. Japanese lawmaker Onishi. So, the LDP has a proud tradition of producing politicians that have no filter or ability to stop themselves saying inappropriate things. This is, of course, not unique to Japan, but, realizing that the arms race in gaffes has recently been dramatically increased by the American side. And frankly, I don't know what sort of response you can do when the governor of Texas jokes about shooting journalists, and the congressman from Montana throat choked and body slammed a Guardian reporter and broke his glasses, and and the president himself grabbing pussy. I mean, frankly, a level's been set that Japan can't really match. But that said, they're making efforts. They're trying. They're putting a good old effort into there, and apparently, it's if people have cancer patients, if they don't like people smoking where they work, they just don't. They should just quit their jobs. I mean, again, why someone even thought that would ever be a good subject matter to talk about. So yes, he meant to say it is better for cancer patients to work in places that are healthier and free of free of passive smoking. He did not retract the remark. So yeah, everyone just misunderstood him. He didn't mean to say, don't like it, quit your job, you damn whiny cancer patients who don't like passive smoke. But that's pretty much what he said. So that was funny. But yes. This has been an interesting one just for Australia. I do care about this sort of thing, being half Australian myself and a New Zealander. We've done these things a little bit better in New Zealand, but by just historical, the way things have gone. So Australia, unlike America, Canada, New Zealand, even South Africa, all the white people got to these countries and they said, oh, look, black people, okay, let's do some sort of a deal that we're going to break, and we're going to take all your shit anyway, but let's pretend to be friends for a short time while we get enough white people here and give you enough diseases that we can take everything away from you. Australia, they dispensed with the formalities of doing that. When white people showed up in Australia, they decided, well, these Aborigines, they seem to be so backward they couldn't possibly have any sort of organized society, so we can just basically treat them the same as animals, and that's what they did, including extermination. But pretty much they just took all their shit. And the thing is, Australia has Australia's wealth is, every Australian knows that every Australian could stop working tomorrow, and just based on digging holes in the ground, Australia's going to basically be set for the next 1,000 years. Just got so much gold, so much uranium, so much everything. It's just incredibly minerally rich country. So yes, there were, the thing is, people have lived in Australia for, possibly, like as soon as people got out of Africa, possibly back to hundreds of thousands of years. Australia is one of the first places that people went to out of Africa. They've been there for a very long time. And there are lots and lots of different, there is an image of what an Aboriginal person is or looks like, but actually it's a very big country, very, very diverse internally, with different sort of First Nations. And so they've always had this problem about how to recognize those First Nations peoples. And in terms of, this all came to a really interesting head as well. Basically, so Australia managed to deal with the Indigenous people's rights problem by basically first not recognizing. See, in South Africa, I guess it always looked a little bit more sinister than Australia, because there were black people. You should say black people, because actually white people have been in South Africa for hundreds, like 500-600 years. Some of the Dutch, the original colonists there, and they frankly are more indigenous than many of the West Africans who live in South Africa. But that said, black people who were denied all their rights, were numerically like 10 times as many people as the white people there. So it was just, democratically, morally, unsustainable from the beginning. Australia, I don't know when the numbers changed, but until 1967, they didn't even count Aboriginals as human population. They just decided to treat them literally like animals. They would keep numbers of Aboriginals along with the kangaroo counts, literally. And they weren't allowed to marry white people, and they weren't allowed to vote until the 1960s, and really through the 1970s. In some states, maintained the right to continue to have laws that basically would treat Aboriginals as subhumans, right through West Australia and Queensland in particular, until the 1980s. And it was amidst this, it was actually in Queensland that they ran into a problem in the 1980s, which was that a guy, Eddie Mabo, who had an island in Torres Strait in between Papua New Guinea and Australia, very, very north of Australia, he wanted to give his property to his children or whatever. I believe it was an inheritance thing that triggered it. And when he applied to give title to his children for his property that he owned on this island, the Queensland government realised that they never registered the land title for this thing. Basically, no white person, they'd forgotten to steal the island. And there's this rule under Australia, a constitutional principle, that Australia was terra nullius. It was uninhabited land, and that all land in Australia, not registered, not claimed, is by default not owned by anyone, and reverts to the state government. So Queensland claimed that no, you're not allowed to give your land to your son, because no white person has stolen it yet, which means that we have to now steal it from you. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. This has always been our land, where we own this. This is my property. You can see it here. It's very nice. Since for thousands of years, this has been our property. And it was the Australian Supreme Court in that case recognised that Aboriginals actually had lived in Australia before white people for the first time ever. And this was, of course, a huge thing in Australia, because it was more or less the first legal admission that maybe all of Australia's stolen, and maybe Aboriginal people are actually owed some compensation and some restitution for having all their shit stolen from them. And that's what Australians have been trying to struggle towards ever since, pretty much since Mabo. And that happened in 1992. That took, given that Australia became an official colony in 1788, that took a long time to get around to recognising that Aboriginals were actually there and actually own, in some cases they own their land. So it's been a rocky road to getting towards representation. They're still just thinking about how to do this, whether to change the constitution, whether to give them a separate assembly, whether to actually have treaties with all the individual First Nations like America has. New Zealand also has a treaty arrangement. In fact, in every country in the Commonwealth that the British colonised, they did treaties with they recognised the original sovereignty preceding colonial sovereignty, and they did these treaties. And Australia was the only country, I think, where they didn't. I think there was a treaty in Tasmania, but they exterminated everyone in Tasmania. There's no one left down there in terms of the indigenous people. But yeah, in terms of trying to set up, how do you do a negotiation with people who were basically conquered like 200 years ago? But it looks like Australia is trying to get up to the start line on that. And as someone who cares about Australia, wants them to do the right thing, I think this is very cool. I think this is a very significant week, and apparently there's some good news, which is that Australian people haven't even noticed, and that normally wouldn't be good news, but it is good news in this case, because if Australian people noticed this, they'd probably be upset if they realised what it was really about. But fortunately, Chappelle Corby, someone who was caught with like 2.5 kilograms of marijuana in Bali, who's been in prison for the last 20 years or something, she's just come back to Australia this week, and so no one's noticed. And I hope they keep it that way. So yes. So it's been an interesting week. As someone who cares about Australia, who wants Australia to do the right thing, as someone who's half Australian myself, from an Australian family, an Australian home, I think this is good news. It's progress. It's always good to see. Let me go through, see if I can find how to use a Japanese bath boogie. 2988 is getting surgery. Apparently, how-to videos are best expressed as death metal songs. Well, I thought everybody knew that, but now you know for certain. What have we got here? There have been some interesting things. I just tweet too much shit. That's the problem. It's hard to filter through to get to it. I think I promised talking about in fact, I tweeted here, Russia really deserves applause for undermining credibility of US democracy almost as successfully as US undermined Soviet communism. I mean, they're having fun with this scandal at the moment. I will get to the scandal thing. There's been an interesting scandal in Japan this week. And it is very, very typical Japanese in some ways. So basically, there has been a case, and here it is. Oh, in fact, this isn't it. Where is it? Oh yeah, Ramadan Mubarak indeed to everyone who, I think, from this Friday celebrating Ramadan. I think that's what you say. I guess it's like Lent. I know a lot of Southeast Asian people, and apparently no sex, no eating during sunlight hours, which is tough in the southern hemisphere because we, have longer. it's summer here. Days are longer, but. Yeah, but I do respect the fact that people do that to think of the less fortunate people in the world. It's a nice tradition. So very, very good with that. So I want to talk about this scandal. This has been a cool scandal. So this guy, basically, apparently the opposition found some documents which found that internally within the Ministry of Education, some people were like giving favour on public tenders to create schools or whatever. And some applications for private schools that, when considering whether to approve these applications or not, there were notes that were being taken mentioning that the Prime Minister really wants the Ministry of Education to approve this. And to me that doesn't sound that strange. I mean, that's any country. Of course, people lobby for their constituents or whatever, and if people pay them money for their campaigns, of course they're going to go and say, hey, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, getting that private school, registered. But in Japan, they take the sort of separation, the independence of these lifetime bureaucrats very, very seriously. So the idea that politicians could be directly, corrupting the decision-making of bureaucrats is actually, it's quite a big thing in Japan. And they've always been very smart about, even when it's happening, being sufficiently discreet that they don't leave a paper trail. But apparently there were rumors spread by the Democratic Party of Japan. There were documents that were found which were showing in the internal consultation documents that for all the problems with this particular school that's starting up, the Prime Minister really wants to see it get done, so we need to do it. Which implied, inappropriate pressure being brought to bear. The government said, no one knows where this document came from, this is bullshit. The Minister of Education said they did an investigation in the Ministry of Education. No one can verify this, just looks like it's a made-up document. And so, was it this Thursday, the former vice head of the ministry, this guy Maikawa, what's his name again? I should get his proper name there. He basically, former top of the Ministry of Education. His name is Maikawa, so here we go. The Chief Cabinet Secretary said, these claims are based on unseen, unsourced documents. It's just a bunch of rumors. But Maikawa, it's got Maikawa, so, where is his name? It's up here. Well, in any case, a former top of the Ministry of Education said, "Oh no, that's true. I can verify those documents are valid." And this is a big scandal for the government. This is another case linked to schools about basically inappropriate pressure. So this seems like this is something which could cause a no confidence vote to succeed against it. Could succeed in bringing down Abe. So right about that same time, 2 days before. This verification by a bureaucrat that, the government's unduly influencing and pressuring us bureaucrats on our job for the Ministry of Education. The Yomiuri Shimbun, which is like the standard, it's not a tabloid, it's a regular newspaper, it's probably the more conservative, the most sort of supportive of the government in Japan, released that they had done research that found that this former education ministry official visited DIK bars, which are basically bars set up for matchmaking, but usually for matchmaking with prostitutes or with young women looking for sugar daddies, basically for angel kosai, for compensated dating. So not exactly like old-fashioned prostitution, more like on a more informal basis, young girls getting paid by old men for sex. And apparently he admits, they came up when they caught, when they found out that some ministry education officials who, for whatever reason, thought this week would be a good time to say that this former very respected bureaucrat visited these, while being an education ministry bureaucrat, was going to bars with underage girls to for negotiating sugar daddy arrangements. He maintained that yes, he did it, but he was only doing it as research as part of his job at the Ministry of Education into poverty of young women. And apparently, more than that, he actually agreed to give a pocket money allowance to some of the women that he interviewed while visiting these bars. So, again, when the Cabinet Secretary said there's no evidence that these documents are valid, and the only guy that you've got, I read the Yomiuri myself, and it says that he's like a child, that he's a sugar daddy for people who use these bars, which I think sounds like someone you wouldn't trust as someone from the Ministry of Education. I mean, they went straight to calling the guy child molester pretty much. They didn't hold back at all. And it's just amazing that this is going back years. It's never come out in the media until this week, when they knew that this guy was going to come out and release verification documents, which could be really hurtful to the Prime Minister. And it was released not through a tabloid, which is the usual way it goes, but through, a major regular newspaper. On both counts, by all accounts, these are the man's own words explaining what he was doing at these bars. He said, "Oh no, it was Ministry of Education business," which really, this is it's problematic on both sides. But the thing is, so here's the thing. There's probably some truth to it. But at the same time, this is all stage managed, and all of these scandals in Japan, if someone gets out of line or does something, there's a file that gets pulled, that gets fed to the media, and they will duly print or whatever to force the person to resign or destroy their credibility. It's how things happen in Japan. It's like watching an opera. Everything is completely stage managed, and the scandal this week is there hasn't been one like this for a while, but it is just classic Japanese scandals where just the timing is it's beyond coincidental. But this stuff happens, so yes. Andrea Moboy, good to have you along, and you love avocados. I like avocados as well, but I agree, I wouldn't have an avocado latte. Apparently New Zealand's having an avocado shortage, and I've suggested that they should do a swap with Japan of butter and potatoes for avocados, because New Zealand doesn't have enough. I don't know, just an idea, just throwing that out there. And this is what I'm talking about. So strange Yomiuri story signals Maikawa being targeted for authenticating the Kake papers. Again, this is not a typical sort of a story for the Yomiuri to run, but yeah, it's, Andrea Moboy, probably similar to China. At least here they do sort of pretend to be Democrat, which I guess they do in China as well. But in China they can just walk up and arrest the person and make them disappear or put them in for re-education. The Boji Lai thing was, of course, insane what happened there. He was a serious, that was maybe the most analogous case, and that was, 1,000 times more dramatic than this. But, yes, just a very typical scandal case, so that was sort of interesting. Let me go along really quickly. I do want to talk about New Zealand succeeded, and there it is. Check this out. New Zealand became the 11th country to succeed in launching rockets into space. It wasn't the government, it's a private company, an American company that uses, basically they build their rockets and launch them from the Mahia Peninsula on East Cape, basically. In the very easternmost part of the North Island of New Zealand. A beautiful, beautiful place. You look at the video. I've never been there, but the waves look really, really good. It is famously good for surfing and high unemployment. They are the smallest, apparently, commercial satellite launching rockets. They can only launch payloads of up to 150 kilograms. But, where it normally takes like $80 to $100 million to launch a satellite, they can launch it for $5 million. So if you've got a small satellite that you want to put into orbit, and the space shuttle would orbit at, I think, 100 kilometers. This rocket can put stuff into orbit 200-300 kilometers. So, still not high, but pretty high. But the point is they succeeded. They didn't put the first launch into orbit, but they put the first test launch into space properly, and it worked. The company is obviously multinational, but a lot of New Zealanders, because it's in New Zealand. It's a small rocket. It's a bit like the Echelon. In fact, it's not called Echelon. What's it called? The Epsilon, the Japanese rocket. But that's all government sponsored in Japan. This is a private company. I like it's got American and New Zealand flags and stuff all over it. It's the New Zealand color black. And this is a really great video of the launch day video, which you should go check out. It's really, really cool. And as a kid in New Zealand, and by the way, New Zealand, maybe you don't know about this, there is a insufficiently documented, but there's enough documentation to suggest that a New Zealander may have beaten the Wright brothers by a couple of months to actually succeeding at powered flight. Not that New Zealand really aggressively pushes that one too much, but it's sort of, I was a kid living in a place with fantastic skies. I used to dream of doing what these people are doing, and they've done it. They've built a rocket, and they've got a commercial space program, so I thought that was really awesome. So technically there is a thing, what's the difference between that and what the North Koreans are launching? Why is New Zealand not getting called to the Security Council over this? But the thing, this is obviously, while rockets could be weaponized, the North Koreans are being very specific that their intent is to weaponize their rockets, whereas New Zealand is very specifically not, although who knows. But I do remember under Clinton, the North Koreans were asking for help with developing their rocket program as space program assistants, which I guess they could do. There's no reason they couldn't launch satellites, just like they could launch warheads, and makes it an interesting proposition. America doesn't support the Chinese space program because it's militarized. It's run by the military. But anyway, so that was pretty cool. Fukushima Crazies. I do want to mention this. This is another element of my title. So there was, in fact, I think I tweeted it as well. There was an article, someone posted something, and it was a Quora response, just talking about, hey, how come people in Hiroshima, if radiation and radioactive elements last for thousands of years, how come people can live in Hiroshima, and why isn't everyone there sick? And so it just kind of talks about how, how different radioactive elements work, their half-lives, how they break down quickly, and why basically Hiroshima is, well, and specifically in the case of Hiroshima, you're talking about a very, very small amount of stuff as well. It was very heavy stuff. It was, the elements. It was very widely dispersed. And yes, there were people who suffered radiation and burns and all sorts of horrible stuff after the bombing, but and people who suffered from radiation sort of related illnesses. But no, Hiroshima. When I first went to Hiroshima in 1990, I wondered, is it safe to come here? And no one really ever explained it, and I never really understood it. There was a nice explanation as to how people sort of exaggerate the lifespan and the effect of radioactivity. I thought that was interesting, so I posted it on my Twitter and on my Facebook, and I attracted, all my Facebook posts are in principle public facing, so I had a bunch of people I've never really had comment on my posts before, self-appointed hobbyist Fukushima experts, who basically didn't like the tone of this person saying, nuclear energy is our friend, and people exaggerate the dangers. And I got all these crazy, basically like these Sandy Hook, 9/11 was an inside job sort of people came. Some people came on, and I did delete some of the comments in the end. It got a little bit too much. I didn't engage them. That was the problem in part. But people who, it is kind of aggravating when people take something that's very close to you and very close to home and something that you still feel slightly messed up about happening. I mean, the whole thing, including the nuclear accident, but the whole thing around that time. And the hysteria caused by people sort of, saying that, the Kennedy assassination was an inside job type people, suddenly making this their new hobby from like the other side of the planet and kind of messing with everyone here. I still get very aggravated at those people, and I got a reminder, I've kind of forgotten that those people existed, but they still exist. They do indeed, and we had a whole lot of them on my Facebook feed. So that was an interesting reminder. The article is in my feed on my Twitter. It's from early in the week, so it might take ages to get to it, but that was sort of interesting. Talking about some renewable power stuff there. The guy who body slammed the reporter is he won, so congratulations to him. In Japan, this whole Mario Kart thing, it is interesting that these go-karts, they can operate on roads and you don't need a helmet or a seatbelt to do it, and they can operate on public roads, and there have been accidents. And there's an interesting legal grey area which allows that to happen, and some people are suggesting it needs to be fixed, but contrary to popular view, Nintendo didn't shut down the Mario Karts. They just said you can't use the name, or you can't leverage our brand and our trademarks without permission, which is fair enough. So they sort of changed that. You sort of cosplay now, but they're still going all over Tokyo, and it looks pretty cool. And Andrea Mulboy, a lot of expats left, and people left because the only information they could get a lot of the time was the English information, and it told everyone panic. They wouldn't, and what really aggravates me is that the Western media would not have reported Fukushima the same way if it had occurred in Britain or in Australia or in America. But because it happened in Japan, they could just go crazy, and they did, and they were encouraged to. And anyone who tried to talk sense during that time period, was getting cut down in the middle of interviews. It was getting cut off. Everyone's trying to make it as exciting as possible, but the thing is, when you've got actual friends and loved ones in that area, and when you are the loved ones in that area, and that's your only source of information, and this is information that you need to survive, it's more than irresponsible. It's actually criminal. The only good, reliable, level-headed information available was in Japanese at that time, and I lost basically a lot of trust, even for what I considered to be reliable sources at that time, let alone these crazy bloggers and so on out there doing this as a hobby. So which isn't to say that some of them don't know what they're talking about, I'm sure, but yes, I pretty much just isolated myself from all of them. So let's go through. Is there anything else super interesting? The Get Down, I saw the Get Down and it was good, but it's maybe not surprising that they're not going to do a second season, given that the first season cost $150 million to make, but I did quite enjoy it. Microsoft Beam is now going to compete against Twitch. That's going to be interesting. They're going to change the name to that anyway. Rocket Lab, that's a New Zealand company. So the first ever successful launch from a private pad, the first ever New Zealand rocket. It's all good stuff. It's interesting here. Who can name in the comments the 11 countries that have successfully launched space rockets? That was a good question, actually. I wonder if you count like French Guiana, which is where ESA launches all the European rockets from. I'm not sure if you count that or not, but I do think actually Israel and India, for example, have launched satellites, so they would count. technically, even, I mean, I don't know if you get an ICBM, I think that kind of counts. I don't know if you count North Korea or not, but I'd be interested to actually check what that 11 country list is. I love keyboards, and there are some fanatics there, so that is good to see. Yes, there were some people talking about how some frustration at the extreme use of Excel for creating word processing documents in Japan. I was forced to use Excel for word processing for my first job, for my first 3 years in Japan. And although I was very frustrated at using Excel for things it wasn't really intended for, I did come to appreciate some of the advantages of Excel over Word outside of a spreadsheet work. For example, it's very easy to format pages to fit, actually much more than in Word. The drawing capabilities are much better. The listing capabilities are infinitely more developed. So yeah, Mexico. Has Mexico launched rockets? This is a good one, actually. Not Brazil. I wonder if Australia's done it. I wouldn't be surprised if British have launched rockets from Australia, but I don't know if Australia's actually done it. But yes, maybe someone can Google that. Block social sites ruined damn good. Well, lately I don't do notifications anymore. So when the scandal broke, before this guy went and verified these documents, this is the guy that did the Japanese scandal. Basically, the scandal sort of came out. TV specials immediately started running. This is how these DIK bars work. You pay at the front, you go and meet women who are looking for men to go on dates with, where they go out and then they decide to pay them sugar daddy allowances later, and they say, man, what was his wife saying? And this just sounds like a guy making an excuse for using prostitutes. And that's how it sounds, but this is what happens when you challenge the man in Japan. It's pretty ugly. And yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting week. Lots of stuff happening. Tsukiji, the current fish market, is as polluted as the new one. So everything is horrible, pretty much. Japan, it's not just Japanese workers are famously not engaged, but apparently the surveys have found it's the same right across East Asia, actually. Trump is coming to Japan in November. Man, that's going to be a circus. It'll be interesting to see. This is my up the top. What I love about Japanese scandals is the amazing synchronicity of how they play out. They always feel stage managed, and they always are. I was talking with Michael T. Kuchek there. It didn't take long for Michael's file to get pulled, indeed, at the moment that he started verifying that these scandal documents are valid. His history of, as an education ministry official, being a sugar daddy for underage prostitutes, it doesn't look good, and apparently his justifications for it. So there we go. A lot of talk about Excel this week, and my career basically goes, first job Excel, second job was Word, third job was Word, but trying to get people to use Excel appropriately. Fourth job was PowerPoint. Current job is now Word, but I sneakily use Excel and PowerPoint when people aren't looking. Spreadsheet artists, that's right, people in Japan, they love their Excel. And we are over time. It's kind of funny. I know what you're thinking, and you're wrong. I can stop using Excel anytime I want to. I declared and actually the Microsoft Excel account responded to me personally after I did that. It says, no, you can't. They really did. In fact, it's in here somewhere, but I'm not going to find it now. But yes, I thought that kind of made my week. Anyway, so that is Tokyo Tonight 2. It's been over an hour. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's always good to have you guys along. We've got Maya's Ben. Hey Maya's Ben, あなたのターンテーブルはどこですか 2011 は関係あるかわかんないけど、my turntables are packed up at the moment. I put them in storage. I haven't really played them much lately, and stuff. I'll go into that in more detail another time sometime, but they're packed up at the moment. I figure they're going to be the lad's inheritance anyway. Yes indeed, butter deal. They've got to do the butter for avocados. They've got to do it. Hope everything's cool with you guys. Don't forget, follow my Twitter, follow my Facebook. Talk to me through the week. Tell me what subjects you want me to bring up. Davo Hunter. Hope you have a good week. Hope everything picks up there in Australia with your friend. Thoughts are going out. Actually, hope everyone there gets better soon. And have a good night, everybody. That's it from me. See you again next time. And peace. Boom. Don't forget to check out 2.5 Oyajis from last night. It was very good. Have a good evening. Peace. Yes. Let's click again one more time.